territories. We acknowledge Indigenous peoples as the original caretakers of the land and waterways on which we work, create, gather, and live. Indigenous peoples have made and continue to make significant contributions to tourism, foodways, and hospitality across this country. From ancestral knowledge of the land and waterways, to the cultivation and stewardship of foods that have shaped our diets, to the sharing of cultures and stories through community-led experiences. These contributions enrich the work we do and the experiences we share, including many of the ones that we're going to show you today. As guests on this line, we do want to acknowledge how much we continue to learn from our Indigenous communities and partners. So, the Culinary Tourism Alliance, we're a national not-for-profit organization. Our primary mission is to bring people together from across the culinary tourism industry to support the creation of shared food and drink experiences that celebrate the history, heritage, and culture of the destinations that we work with. Our marketing team does an excellent job of promoting these stories around the clock through social media engagement and such. And our destination development team, where I'm from, helps destinations create taste-based experiences and strategies. It really helps bring some of these experiences to life. So I think that's enough about us. Let's dive right into the content we have for you today. This is our brief agenda. We're going to start with what are culinary and agritourism, just some basic concepts, and discussing the types of food tourists that we have. There's various types that we'll go through. Each has their own specificities and characteristics. It's going to help understand how to market to these folks. Then we're going to get into understanding foodways and embracing taste place. And finally, we're going to talk about how to tell your food story, tips and tricks for it, and also places you can share these stories. We will have time for questions at the end. If you happen to have any burning ones, feel free to just interrupt me. Otherwise, yeah, absolutely, we can do that at the end as well. So let's start with what are culinary and agritourism. These are the basics of those two terms. So culinary tourism is any tourism experience where a visitor interacts with food and beverage that reflects the history, heritage, and geography place that they're visiting. Agritourism is a subset of culinary tourism that focuses on the production side of food and drink by showcasing the unique processes, people, and places involved. Agritourism is a very special one to me. As someone who lives in a city, agritourism is very important to helping folks who are more versed in the urban aspects of living understand where their food comes from. Agritourism appeals to those who live in the cities by drawing them out to the rural areas and helping them meet the farmer, understand how their food's grown. It's for folks who want to interact with food-based experiences. You know, pick an apple, learn how to make a pie, learn how the farmer got started, etc. This is what we call the culinary tourism value chain. It's made up of types of businesses that can work together to support one another with the goal of growing culinary and agritourism in a destination. So across this chain, we have all sorts of different nodes here. We have growers and producers. We have suppliers and restaurants, farmers markets, and other attractions. There's also beverage producers, accommodations, tours, and cooking schools. And finally, we have festivals and events and retailers. So the reason I'm introducing this is because no matter where you fall on this culinary tourism value chain, you have an opportunity to think of yourself as a part of the tourism industry and partner with others along this culinary tourism value chain to add value to your own experience, partner, build new experiences, attract visitors out with packaged experiences, and really help deliver a memorable experience that they're not going to forget. And we're going to get more into that as well. So let's talk about what a culinary tourism experience can incorporate and what are some examples of it. So as we see from the photos here, there is no one single culinary tourism experience. Sometimes we like to think of it as a gourmet or Michelin star restaurant, and sure, those are types of culinary tourism experiences, but certainly there's so many more exciting types. There's visiting a farmer's market. There's dining in a restaurant. There's cooking classes. There's harvesting fruits and vegetables at a U-Pick. There's touring wineries, breweries, cideries, and craft distilleries, and learning about the passion that those producers have for producing those craft beverages. There's guided tastings. And of course, there's food tours. That's to say that culinary tourism experiences are a very diverse sort of offering. And no matter where you fall on the value chain, there are certainly opportunities for you to create and benefit from being a part of the tourism industry. Speaking of the tourism industry, let's talk about a few key trends that have emerged across culinary tourism in the last couple of years. And these are really to help you contextualize how important it's becoming. These are from the Hilton Trends Report from this year and the last. So, 1 in 5 visitors travel to seek out culinary experiences. And even if they're not directly seeking those out, it's certainly going to be a part of their trips. It's an opportunity to be a part of the trip because everyone does have to eat and may as well make that exciting, right? There's also, after accommodations, dining experiences happen to be the next highest travel budget priority. It's a pretty big spend. Thirdly, travelers do want experiences where they can meet the producers and see how food is produced. Travel is becoming increasingly what we call experiential. People do enjoy looking at the sites passively. Like if you go to France, you want to see the Eiffel Tower and do this stuff, but also people want to learn about the location's food, why it's important to that culture. And we're going to get into that more with what we call food waste later on. Finally, 77% of travelers enjoy what we call grocery store tourism. That's a part of what I'm talking about when I say people want to learn more about the local food. They just want to know how the local inhabitants, residents are eating, what's special in their areas, what's grown there, etc. And that's all a part of the same trend. Culinary tourism is becoming more and more important. Now we're going to cover the different types of food tourists. As I mentioned, there's a few different types here. And first and foremost, one that you may already be familiar with, it's foodies. So foodies are primarily motivated by food experiences. They choose destinations based on the food experiences they want to have. They research and look for reviews, articles of quality, up-to-date social media content before the trip. Also, they book online well in advance of traveling. They'll book restaurants they want to see, demonstrations and cookery classes they want to experience well ahead of traveling. And they also spend more of their travel budget on food experiences. That's an important one. It's a key market that spends on food and will pay for excellent and immersive, knowledgeable food and drink experiences and for knowledge they can take back home with them. Next up, we have what we call food connected consumers, called food connected tourists in this case. And there's some similarities with foodies, but there are some key differences as well. First of all, food and drink are not their primary focus when traveling. They may be a sports tourist, maybe a wildlife photographer, could be anyone else. They may be a general cultural tourist, but importantly, they are interested in connecting with the places they visit through food. Think about a cultural tourist who is visiting Richmond, BC, or Regina for the history. They may want to learn about the local migrant populations, for example, and how historically migration has changed. They may visit a museum, but they may also be interested in learning about those cultures through foods. They might go to a cultural restaurant. That's where the tie-in happens. They're concerned also about the origin of the food and drink products that they're having. And finally, importantly, they do not plan all of their food and drink experiences in advance. They may be traveling for another purpose. They may land and decide, okay, well, we want to try some of these new restaurants that we're seeing. They are discerning, but they may not travel in it. They may not plan in advance. So that's a key market that an agritourism operator can capture, for example, with a farm to table experience or a demonstration or workshop showing them where the food here comes from. We have agritourists. Of course, there's some overlap. These are folks who are interested in food production and want to learn more about the people, places, and practices involved in producing food. They seek hands-on experiences such as U-Picks, farm tours, tasting, workshops, and one that's become especially popular is the farm-to-table experience. Creating a feast in a field, having an operator delight visitors with information about how these fruits or the vegetables or the meat is harvested, how it's prepared. Is it a family recipe? Was it passed on to you by your grandma? They want to know all of these things. They're interested to know how agritourism operators like you live your lives. And while these are facts that many may take for granted, this is a group that really wants to know about those details. It's part of what makes the experience immersive and knowledgeable for them. They want to take those back home. They want to sample the foods that have been prepared and a part of your culture. Fourth, we have beverage tourists. Now, as the name implies, their primary reason for travel is to visit vineyards, wineries, cideries, breweries, or cherries, which I'm sure I didn't pronounce correctly, but there you go. They're looking for tasting experiences and they're looking for tours. They want to know about the unique processes that went behind a producer's, I guess, production of their whiskey. Why does this one taste different from the other one? Of course, what went into crafting this beer. They look for tasting experiences and tours that will help them sample these aspects and where an operator can tell them about why their beverages are special. What knowledge went into crafting these? What artisanal traits and characteristics went into this? They typically enjoy food pairings with their drink. And there's a growing interest in non-alcoholic options as well, especially with younger generations. Okay. Now, this is a fifth category, and it is everyone else. Every tourist does have one thing in common. They do have to eat. And this is to say that while someone may not identify as a foodie or a agri-tourist or beverage tourist or food connected consumer, they will have to eat while they're at the destination. It's an opportunity to capture that revenue. They're going to be spending money on food. It may as well be on something that is important to them or important to you, some learning opportunity for them as well. Ideally, they spend their money, of course, at a farm to table experience or a U-pick or otherwise an experience where they can go home with a full stomach, but also having learned something that they can go post on their social media and tell their friends about. We're going to move on to the next section. It's understanding foodways and embracing taste of place. These are two key terms that I'm going to explain in a little more depth because they're important. So let's talk about understanding foodways first. As we know, food and drink reflect a place's history, culture, and geography. All of these aspects lead back to the people of the place, how their culture has evolved, how it's shaped their landscape, traditions, as well as their food and drink preparation practices and consumption practices. This relationship is called foodways. And in front of you, you have a more, I guess, formal definition. Foodways describe how specific foods, production practices, and culinary traditions are shaped by and contribute to a community's identity. That is to say, there's not one foodway. We talk about them in multiples. There's many foodways for any given destination, let alone other destinations. And now we're going to talk about taste of place. So taste of place are food experiences or drink experiences that represent the unique characteristics of a place. Through taste of place, visitors experience the destination's foodways. That's the relationship. Again, through these taste of place experiences, a visitor can learn about foodways that we just talked about. Tasting and learning about locally grown and produced foods gives visitors what we call a sense of place. Visitors to restaurants, farms, farmers markets, and food businesses. These are examples of taste of place experiences that provide opportunities for folks to learn about the history, heritage, and culture of a region. It's exactly what we just talked about. It's when people travel, they want to know about the culture of a place, the history of a place, how did the land become, how it is. And foods and beverages are exactly a succinct way to do this. It's almost a way of literally consuming the land that they're on. A taste of place experience taps into a community's culture to create a memorable and multisensory experience for visitors. And this is very important, especially in the multisensory aspect. Obviously, tasting involves taste, but there's so many other senses involved. And the more of these that an experience hits, the more memorable it is for visitors. Visitors want to see, they want to feel, touch, and hear the experience. Think about a farm experience. A visitor can taste an apple pie, but what about if they help prepare the apple pie? There's a tactile aspect to that. What about the sights and sounds that they hear around the farm? The rustling of the wind, the cows mooing, the smells of the farm. Like these are all things that people do crave. And it's something that makes it more memorable for them as well. Now, I'll give a very specific example that is sort of pan-national. It's maple syrup. Many international travelers that come here, of course, know that it's a well-known Canadian food. A visitor coming to Canada may want to have a meal with maple syrup incorporated in it, or may want to visit a sugar shack. These would all be examples of a taste of place experience. And so a taste of place experience is one that gives visitors a sense of place by bringing to life the story behind a community's food and drink. A community's taste of place can reflect its geography and environment. It can reflect the food and drink production practices. Of course, it can and should reflect the indigenous foodways and knowledges of that community, local culture, newcomer and settler influences, as well as hospitality and the human connection. Now we're going to look at some more examples of taste of place that are very special and, of course, unique to Saskatchewan. And the first one is the example of bison. So bison are one of the most powerful and symbolic taste of place in the province. For Indigenous nations across the prairie regions, bison were not just a food source, they were also central to culture, spirituality, and ways of life, reflecting a deep relationship with the land and its inhabitants based on respect and sustainability. And so the near extinction of bison, well, it was in the 19th century. It's a crucial part of that history and story. It's tied to colonization and the disruption of the indigenous food systems. Today, the return of the bison and the conservation efforts that are led through indigenous led initiatives represent resilience, healing, and cultural revitalization. Now, from a culinary tourism perspective, experiencing bison, whether it's through a meal, whether it's through a ranch visit, or even an interpretive experience, offers a meaningful way for visitors to engage with these deeper stories. Through bison, visitors can understand the relationship between people, animals, and the land, and how those connections are being built today. They can learn about the history and, of course, modern revitalization efforts, Indigenous led. And so that's how we talk about taste of place and foodways. It's so much more than just tasting of food. It's the entire web around it. Human aspect, the history, everything we just talked about. And to cement that relationship, here's another example of taste of place. It's Saskatoon berries. So the Saskatoon berries are one of the most iconic taste of place in Saskatchewan because they are truly rooted in the land. They grow wild across the prairies and have been an important food source for Indigenous people for generations. Traditionally, they were eaten dried. For the winter, they were eaten fresh or incorporated into pemmican, which is a high energy food made with dried meat and fat that sustained communities through long journeys and harsh winters. What makes the Saskatoon berries particularly powerful as a culinary tourism experience or taste of place is their strong connection to seasonality and the landscape. The act of picking the berries, whether wild or at a U-pick farm, is itself an immersive experience that connects visitors directly to the land. Now, today's Saskatoon berries continue to bridge the past and the present. They can be found today in pies, jams, craft beverages, and even savory dishes. And they tell a story of continuity of Indigenous knowledges grounded in the prairie environment. Now, our third and final specific example of taste of place for Saskatchewan will be lentils. Now, lentils represent a different but equally important taste of place in Saskatchewan, one that speaks to the province's role in global agriculture and evolving foodways. While they may not have the same deep historical roots in Indigenous food systems as the previous two examples, bison and Saskatoon berries, lentils are now a defining part of the province's agricultural identity. The province produces around 90% of Canada's lentils. It's a major global exporter. This reflects how the prairie landscape, for example, its soil, climate, scale, growing conditions, has shaped modern farming practices. What makes lentils especially interesting from a culinary tourism lens is how they connect Saskatchewan to global cultures. Lentils are a staple in cuisines around the world, from Indian dishes to the Middle East. Their presence in Saskatchewan then does highlight the province's multicultural communities and the way global food traditions take root in local landscapes, especially in an era when people travel, relocate, and resettle. So while lentils may be a lesser known example of take to place for Saskatchewan, they do tell a powerful story about innovation, production, adaptation, and Saskatchewan's role in feeding the world. I'd like to take a moment to summarize the concept of taste of place using the examples we just discussed. So together, Saskatoon berries, bison, and lentils illustrate a diverse and powerful story of Saskatchewan's taste of place. They show how food can reflect deep Indigenous knowledge, historical change, and modern agricultural innovation, all shaped by the landscape. For visitors, these foods are entry points into stories about Saskatchewan. The point is that they're sustenance, but they're also more than that. Whether it's picking berries, tasting bison, or trying lentil-based foods, Each offers a way to connect more deeply with Saskatchewan's people, history, cultures, and land. We're going to hop over to our next section, which is telling your food story. And we're going to start with the concept of storytelling. So, storytelling in culinary tourism involves sharing information about a business, its people, and its food in a way that's captivating to visitors. Storytelling helps visitors feel emotionally connected to the experience and to the destination itself. Food tourism relies heavily on connecting people to place, and storytelling is a powerful way to do that. It's a powerful way for a business to convey the intangible cultural values that they offer to visitors. When food and drink are enriched through compelling stories, it increases the chances that visitors recommend the business and the destination to others and that they revisit themselves. Together, the stories shared by visitor-facing businesses along the culinary tourism value chain, including farms and farm-based experiences, help build an overall narrative about the region. So what exactly do we mean by storytelling? It's when a business finds ways to engagingly tell stories about its business's history, the people in that business, the food that they offer, and the ingredients that they produce, as well as the culture, history, or traditions. Some examples. If you're giving a story to a visitor about your business, how or why was the business developed? If you're talking about people, who founded the business? How did they get here? One of the most fascinating stories I've heard in my work with newcomers and newcomer families and third generation families, for example, is that visitors love to hear about that migration story from the Ukraine, from Romania. How did you get to Canada? So I've worked with some families that have had grandparents that came here generations ago, started farms, and visitors want to know about how that farm was founded. What adversities did the previous generation face in getting here? How did they break the land in? What inspired them to produce the foods that they do? And how do they share their recipes with visitors today? Those are the kinds of stories that visitors really do want to hear about. Some other examples are who works on the farm or in the business. What does a typical day look like for them? If you're discussing a food story, how about a story about the ingredient or the dish? Where does it come from? What makes it special? What makes the variety special? Or what makes your way of producing it special? Is it a traditional ingredient? If it is, people want to know about that too. And finally, with culture, history, traditions, has the farm been in the family for several generations? If so, tell visitors a bit about that history, because they do want to know that, and it's actually surprisingly interesting to them. So that's what we mean by storytelling. It's those intangible aspects of your business. You can give them food and have them try the ingredients, have them prepare a dish or a non-culinary asset like soap through your grains or through the ingredients that you make. These are all workshops that are very popular, but a key part of those workshops and experiences are also storytelling, engaging the visitors, being a good facilitator, and delighting them with the stories that you have to share. That's part of what people remember. It's the human aspect of it. So importantly, in finding the story, we want stories that are unique to you. Who are your owners and staff? What is the significance behind the ingredients? Where do the foods you produce come from? When did you start to learn a skill that helps you produce these foods, grow the ingredients? What are the processes? How do you produce your product? And finally, why did you create your business? It's the who, what, where, why, and how that people are interested in. Now, what makes a story ready to share? These are a few key aspects that you want to consider and ask yourself before sharing a story to make sure that it's market ready. First, consider your audience. Have you tailored your story to resonate with them? It's crucial to understand who they are, what they value. By doing this, you ensure that your story isn't just heard, but felt, and that emotional connection is what encourages folks to come back and to be your biggest champions. Next, think about your narrative angle. Is it a unique one? Offering a fresh perspective can capture attention and keep your viewers engaged. Also ask yourself if it's a story that the audience can relate to or experience themselves. This connection can make your story especially memorable. And while you're thinking about that, it's important not to forget the technical side. Optimize for the platform you're using. Whether you're telling that story through your website or TikTok or Instagram or through signage on your property, each of these platforms or I guess facilitating strategies has its nuances, and your story should align with them for maximum impact. Seek feedback. Another person's perspective can be invaluable in refining your story. Ask your family and friends, pitch the story to them. Is it something that engages them? Are they delighted by what you have to say? If so, it could be ready to share with others. It's also important to reflect on whether this is your story to tell. This ensures authenticity and respect for the voices involved. Finally, confirm that you're able to back up what you're claiming. These elements together create a compelling market-ready story. Now, the fun part, where to tell the stories. There are so many cool ways that you can share the stories that you create with your visitors. When you're giving them a tour of your property, you can verbally interact with them and convey these stories. You can optimize your website to host these stories, or you can tell them through social media by tailoring them to these individual platforms using images, videos, etc. If you happen to serve food and you have menus, storytelling can be done through the menus as well. Little side panels that share the history of a dish or family heritage history, the history of the property. These can be invaluable in interacting with visitors and helping them understand why your property and experience are special. Like I said, there's also signage on the property. Signage can be useful for logistical aspects, conveying hours of operation, where entrances and exits are, where the washrooms are, but they're also so important in conveying stories. Have a sign that shares why the property is special, why the experience that they're going to have is special. Finally, of course, there's photos and decor. These visual aspects and the arrangement of your space, the architecture, all of these can tell a story. Photos can do the same. What is hanging on your wall will convey something special to visitors. So it's an opportunity to convey something cool from your family history. For example, it's a farm passed down through generations. Have a photo of the previous generation working or breaking in the land or preparing a dish. Those are all examples of where you can tell your stories. So this has been a pleasure, and I hope it's been helpful. There's going to be time for questions, but if you do want to get in touch, my email address is there as well. So I'd like to open it up to questions if there are any.